what are some of the concepts that the General Plan Advisory Committee looked at, the Planning Commission, the Council now is looking at, that might be useful in helping us figure where South Maui should go? Clearly defined separate neighborhoods, which means, and going to the second one, green belts to separate communities. In other words, South Maui has sort of all run together, north, south, and what we suggested was that perhaps where we can, where we have gullies, gulches going through, that we create some green belts that help separate the areas. There might be a Suda area, an Azeka area, Keawakapu, a Wailea, a McKenna, and try to create some boundary lines between them so people feel this is my neighborhood. We'd like to have some greenways in the area there, that internal within each of these communities, and also connecting these communities where you have bike paths and walking paths. One thing that South Maui does not have is any core civic center, any central area that might be considered a town center, where you could have a police station, a fire station, a middle school, a bus terminal where people could transfer from one bus to another, someplace maybe a few stops, maybe a preschool, something that would be a core area. Right now it sort of runs along South Maui Road, South Kihei Road, and without that thing. South Maui certainly could use some improved bus transportation and a transit corridor. Now
I've heard it said that Kihei has all of the problems of an urban area and few of the advantages.
Yep, very well put.
Yeah.
And then another thing is that we'd like to be able to deliver county services. You can get back to the slides here. Deliver most of the most efficient county services and do it. That's why we want to keep it somewhat compact with urban and rural growth boundaries. And then the question is, what kind of an urban growth boundary? Do we want one for 2020, another one a little bit further out for 2030, so we keep it compact and not just spread everything out? Do we want mixed-use zoning, where you have people, for example, living upstairs with their store downstairs? So it's not just a single family, it's not just a business area, it's a mix of the two. And then finally, we have a concept of establishing natural area reserves in South Maui, where we would have down at the far south end at Wailea 670, at the south end of that property, a large green area, north area of McKenna Resort, Mauka areas above Big Beach, and then also some of the drainage channels that come through Kihei.
That makes sense.
To have some Mauka Makai, have green belts there where you don't put any development in, and you really try to preserve those areas and slow the water down so it doesn't flood into South Maui.
Yeah, we've got to do something like that, or more development, it's just going to be more problems.
Now, one of the ways the county looks at things is they divide properties up on charts and tables into 4 categories: projects that have been recently completed, entitled projects where the developer, the landowner, has all the designations they need to get development going. They have state land use, county community plan, and county zoning, so they can go ahead and start development. In other cases, they have what's called designated, which means that 2 of those 3, or 1 of the 3, they already have some indication that the government will give them authority, but they can't go ahead until they get all 3 categories. And then lastly, we have certain land parcels, and there are many of them in South Maui, where the developer, the landowner, has proposed development, but has not yet got any entitlements from the government, but they would love to be able to do it. This map shows some of these areas in South Maui. We'll come back to it later in more detail, but the areas in red are those areas proposed. Here we have down here on the right side is McKenna, then Wailea here, and up here North Kihei, and you can see Mauka areas. There are a lot of people who would like to develop these areas. And we have in between in here, lots of development in the area down here where there are small parcels, but some of them are very dense, where they have lots of development already entitled.
But they haven't built it yet.
They haven't built it yet. Now, so what do we have? These are entitled properties that have already been set aside for development, where the owner of the land can go ahead, as long as they meet the requirements of the county, can go ahead and build. For example, McKenna Resort has 850 plus additional units. They have now got some, they're going through a planning again to try to increase that number. We don't know yet what they're going to be proposing, but it's certainly well over 850. Wailea, the big A and B property, has 1,790 additional units that they're proposing.
Wailea Resort still has that many additional units.
That many that they still plan, and that's what they're telling the state that they plan to put on their property.
And this is recently they've told the state
this. This is as of last year.
So you're getting these figures from some state documents?
This is actually from the landowners themselves. This is what this is their plan, put into an environmental impact statement.
I always like to know where the figures are coming from.
And Honuaula what used to be called Wailea 670. They're planning, or they already have entitlements for 1,150 units actually on their property, an additional 250 up in North Kihei.
So I can see where this 4,900 is coming from, right? You had some big numbers right there.
And overall, we have in South Maui almost 5,000 units that are already entitled, where the county has relatively little say about whether these developments will go through. But that doesn't even include all the people who already live in South Maui who may want to put in ohanas, or there may be some agricultural subdivisions. Some of those big landowners may want to chop up their land into 2-acre parcels and or larger lots, which could be developments. There are vacant lots that are empty right now that just haven't been built yet. And there are a number of smaller subdivisions which don't even get counted in that 4,900 unit. So we have a lot of potential development that could take place in South Maui, even if no further units are added.
So is it needed?
Well, that's what will be argued. Before the council,
would housing get cheaper if all those units were built?
It might get cheaper. It may change the value of present-day properties. People may lose value if all of a sudden these start flooding on the market. And
well, it looks like a lot of these are luxury properties here, so it might not affect the everyday market.
That's very
if
true.
They were built
That's
up.
very true. So we don't know which properties will be built first and what the schedule will be. Now, just as an example here, these are developments that have been proposed in and around Wailea and McKenna. And here's McKenna down here at the far right, and Wailea here, where they're going to still fill in a lot of these lots here. This is Maui Meadows up here. This in orange is up here. This whole area up here is Wailea 670 property, where 1,150 units will be going in. And do
the colors mean anything here? Does orange mean something?
No, they mean some proposal here. This area, for example, in yellow, McKenna Resort is seriously looking at doing that. They're not entitled to do that now, but they would love to be able to develop it.
Okay.
These areas down here in McKenna, they are already interested in putting in units, and it will be questioned what rate they build them, what the market will be as to how fast they build them. These are the actual numbers that they gave to the state when they talked about the widening of Pi'ilani Highway for that last segment just before Wailea. Wailea 670 said they're going to build 1,150 units plus 100,000 units of commercial space. Wailea Resort talked about 1,150 residential units, 640 more hotel units.
Well, yeah, you hear about those already. Yeah.
And some more commercial space. And McKenna Resort, it's much vaguer there. They talk about 850. Now, these are all up until the year 2022. So in the next 11 years, these numbers, adding them up, would be 3,000 more units just in those 3 big projects. And I like to use the phrase at the top here, you can see it perhaps, this is really at the end of the Pi'ilani cul-de-sac. Pi'ilani Highway is like it's a road with a dead end. And all that traffic will all have to flow back, and all the goods and services all those people will need will all have to flow down Pi'ilani Highway. It's going to make that highway very, very crowded. This is a look at I'm going to do a quick look here. This is the plan for Wailea 670. And they've indicated the green areas, the golf courses primarily. The yellow areas and the orange areas here in the middle the orange areas are more multifamily. The yellow areas are more single family. It's a very large project, and it's sitting directly above Wailea and just south of Maui Meadows.
Actually, when you read their economic study for Wailea 670, it mentions that practically all the single family actually is going to be down along the southern end, and very little of it along the northern end. Okay. So they may have revised that map since it's been published. Yeah.
Okay. And one of the other things about this, of course, is that, where will the water come from? How will the wastewater be taken care of? There are issues on all of these developments that will need to be answered that have not yet been fully clarified. The purple area in the middle here is that Wailea 670 project we just looked at, and down below is A and B, and A and B's Wailea project.
It looks busy.
It's very busy. They really plan to fill out their property over the next 10, 15 years up to its capacity, adding, as we said, over 1,700 more units.
So is all the red, is that all business? It says B.
B is business commercial space that they're planning to put in. The orange areas are multifamily here and here. The yellow areas are more single family. Some of those have already been built. Some are being planned to be built.
So if it doesn't have those little streets in it, then it hasn't been built yet.
Excuse me?
See, some of them have little streets in them?
Some of them have. Some have been built, some haven't been built. It depends on the year of the map.
I see. Okay.
But this is a large project in addition to Wailea 670, and in addition to what's planned down in McKenna to the right.
Yeah.
Here's McKenna Resort, and one of the iterations that they're proposing, that has been proposed by the former developer. We don't know what the new developer, now that it's changed hands, what plans they will have, which should come out sometime this summer. One of the main things is, the question is what's going to happen along Big Beach. Here's Big Beach here, and we don't know what's going to happen in the southern end down here, where they don't have all the entitlements yet down in this area down here. And there are a lot of archaeological sites here, and the GPAC looked at this area, as we'll see in a map, and said this area probably shouldn't be developed. We should really control the development and keep it away from Big Beach and allow this to become more of a green belt here.
Draw a line in the sand here.
Literally.
Yeah. Okay.
In the lava rock.
In the lava rock.
Okay, let's go through this. So what do we have overall in Maui? This is what we have existing entitled. This is the development. I mentioned the 4,933 that we see here for South Maui.
Oh, this is the breakdown
This is the
of how
breakdown
much
for
is
each
what?
of the 6 districts on Maui Island.
Oh, okay.
We can see here West Maui, we already have entitled 3,900, almost 4,000. Central Maui, also about the same, 3,800. North Maui, Paia Haiku, only 31. Upcountry, 3,900. Most of that is Hawaiian homelands, which is
not going to be for everybody.
not going to be for everybody, but
Right.
it's a large development up there. Total down here in East Maui is 130, and total 16,000 units are already entitled fully and can go ahead with their development when the market is ready, when the developer wants to go through the financing and get the projects built.
So about a quarter in South Maui.
Over a quarter.
over a quarter.
Almost a third of it. About 35% of that is in South Maui. It's the largest of all of them, and that's only what we have now. So now what we have to see is, can South Maui absorb even more development than this presently entitled property?
Now, is there any guarantee that that all of the entitled units will be built?
Never a guarantee of anything until they're built and occupied. But the market turns up, if the housing market turns up,
Yeah.
we could see them being built. It's a function really of the market.
Kind of like Maui Lani, nothing happened for a long time, and then,
And
the
then
market
all of a sudden
got
the market
good
was mature, and
Yeah.
and they went. And the thing is though that once they're entitled, the county can't say, oh no, that's too much. It's entitled. And so when the market does go up, there's very little ability by the public authorities, by our community, to say stop.
So your point is, this isn't the time to just say, oh, we need jobs, we need land, we need this and that. It's the time to look and say, is this really a very good place to develop, regardless of the fact whether we need jobs or
and
need
do we need
this or
more?
that.
Do we
Yeah.
want to do we want to say, hey, we've got enough entitled properties now, we don't need to add to it at this point, because we don't know where that development's going to take place within the areas already entitled, and just adding more entitlement makes it more confusing where to build bus service, where to put the water lines, et cetera, if we spread things out even more.
What about the idea of infill in Kihei? Now, GPAC discussed that.
Well, we have here these areas in green that you see in the middle here and over here. A lot of these areas are over here, Maui Lu area.
Yeah.
These are infill areas that will potentially be developed when the market is ready and the owners want to go ahead with it. And so the question then is, do we want to just stay with those areas, or do we want to add these yellow and red areas to the mix already? And
Well, you mentioned the idea of having maybe kind of a gradual line that maybe moves slowly up the mountain. How would that work? Do you have any maps that show that
I
at
don't
all?
have any maps here that show that, but that's one of the ways to do it is that the county could say, okay, we'll have one line here in 2020, and then we'll have another line 2030 by year. Say so by 2020 we only want to go up to this limit. By 2030 we'll allow a little bit more.
Do you know? Do communities do this? Have you?
I've heard about it on the mainland that they've done this, but it's something that would give a signal to the development, to the owners of the land. This is when you'll be able to develop what can expect.
Actually, there's some communities that only give a certain amount of building permits each year.
That would be another way of doing it.
That's how they phase growth. Yeah, I've heard of places like that.